Hello again guys and welcome back to another video. Today we are going to be doing a scenario in which the USA goes to war with all of the Americas. So here we have the US color in red and the Americas in blue. Now for strongest countries for the USA, we're going to be dividing it into states. Obviously California, Texas, Florida, New York. And for the blue team, we're going to have Canada, Mexico, Brazil, and Argentina, followed by Colombia, Peru, Bolivia, and Chile. So let's go ahead and get started with a US invasion of Canada as they begin to send troops up from Michigan and out from New York. Toronto is defended for now, but that won't last forever as US troops are also cutting off New Brunswick and beginning to push into that region. They then push across the entire New England border, beginning the push for Ottawa, Montreal, and Quebec City. They decide not to go on the entirety of the border, but instead focus on Vancouver, as it is one of Canada's largest cities, and capturing it would be very good for the USA. That goes successfully, and Canada's first, major city falls. With that, all of the land around it also falls, and the USA begins an operation to connect up with Alaska. While all this is happening, they send down a few troops into Mexico to capture Baja. But overall, they don't focus on the country, just sending in enough so that Mexico can't dare try and push into the USA. With that, so far, this is just Mexican troops along the border. That's why they're not being able to push back, but soon enough, more blue team troops will be arriving, as we have to take that into consideration. Also, another thing I should say is that this is a non-realistic scenario. This is completely made up and would never happen in real life. As I said, an unrealistic scenario. That would not happen. Don't go around just leaving comments about, oh, the USA would never invade Canada. I know they wouldn't. This is oh my god, what goes on with this thing? Unrealistic scenario. With that, they begin to push out from the entire Alaskan panhandle, taking a good bit of land from Canada, but they begin to focus more and more over here on Toronto. The city is completely surrounded. Oh my god, what the heck? There we go. And the USA captures it. With that, they then begin to push up into Canada. And I know it doesn't look like much, but this is probably about 75% of Canadians gone, maybe. Probably more than that. And after going north just a little bit more, capturing all of New Brunswick, this is almost all of Canada's population gone. Probably around 80-90%, while pushing over and across the Great Lakes will only make it better. They begin a full-on operation across the border until we see Canada's surrender to the United States of America. With this huge win, the USA decides to take some time and some troops to take over the area. Canada surrendered a lot of land, and the USA has to get military presence there and just overall control of the area before they can start to push somewhere else, because it could rebel if they don't. They also make a quick landing off the coast of Greenland, which Greenland in real life is controlled by Denmark, but in this scenario they were given independence, as geographically they are more a part of North America than Europe. With that, Greenland falls, but don't think the blue team isn't doing anything, as the USA is kicked completely out of Mexico, and a push up into Arizona and New Mexico started. They also begin to push across into Texas, with now having the help of Cuba, all of Central America, Colombia, Venezuela, Ecuador, and maybe some Peru and Brazil. But this still isn't the full blue team army. So this is probably going to end in a stalemate. Maybe the US could push across fast enough. Maybe the blue team could recover and push back the US. I don't really, I mean, it's going to be close for sure. Statistics-wise, the blue team has a lot more population here. The USA is more modern, though. So yeah, I'd say it's pretty close, but they absolutely destroyed Canada. So that's just one thing you can say about how well the USA is doing. Come on, there we go. So the US begins to send its troops back down into the southern US, kicking them out of some land in Texas and California, while mostly abandoning the deserts in Arizona and New Mexico, with the blue team having a lot of success here, although it isn't as important as if some of their other campaigns into Texas and California had succeeded. With that, we now see the full US Army begin to arrive, and it begins to kick back the Mexicans and other blue team countries back. It recaptures Phoenix, probably the biggest city Mexico had captured at this point, and pushes them pretty much all the way back to the border until a stalemate is reached. And it's like this for a few months, with some very slight, yet, I mean, it's something, American progress, pushing back Mexico even more in certain areas. With that, at this point, the blue team decides that the USA is a failed invasion, and the USA manages to kick out all Mexican and other blue team troops, which at this point, I'm sure Brazil and Argentina would even be up here. It's already been a few months into the war. In the beginning, they weren't, but by now I'm sure they're at least beginning to arrive to help them out. With that, the USA now controls all of their land plus Canada, and they're going to re-begin their invasion into Mexico, capturing all of Baja. Oh my god. Capturing all of Baja and beginning to push down their two coastlines, along with just all across the border. With this happening, the blue team begins to panic, but not as much as this is going to do, as the USA sends an invasion for Cuba and captures, and captures the entire island along with the Bahamas, Haiti, the Dominican Republic, and in real life they technically already have control over Puerto Rico, but I don't know, let's actually put them on the red team instead of just being occupied territory. They also begin to push down some of these islands, but you can't see that on this map. I mean, it isn't a perfect map. I'm trying to get a better one, but hopefully that's soon. The US continues their push down Mexico, making a landing in the Yucatan Peninsula, and overall focusing on beating this one country, knowing that if they're knocked out and they can push down to the Panama Canal, South America will most likely agree to a stalemate, and the US will gain a lot of land. With that, Mexico split off from its allies, and its complete collapse has really just begun, as the US starts to take some very important cities along the coast, and eventually begins to push for Mexico City. The battle happens, ending in a US victory, encircling about half of the Mexican army and cutting them into even more pieces, leading to the country's surrender. With that, the US can now begin its campaign down into Central America, as these countries are much weaker and have much less of a reason to defend for the rest of the continent of South America. With this, they successfully push to the Panama Canal, but the blue team refuses to surrender, so the USA does a few naval invasions, one in northern Colombia and Venezuela, one over here in Guyana and Suriname, and once again, French Guiana was also given independence for the sake of the scenario. And they also make one in Ecuador. And at this point, the blue team sees no point in going on and agrees to an American peace deal. So, how will that look? Let me show you. First things first, our winner, technically it was the USA, but they won't have full control over the Americas. They didn't go into South America. The only reason that they won is because they had more land in total. Okay, let's go ahead and put in these new borders, which I don't really know what you expected from it, but it's about that. Oh. Okay, 23. So, of course, first things first, that is the complete annexation of the country of Canada. No puppets, no anything. Canada is now part of the US. They also annexed all of Greenland, who was also a part of the war. With that, the USA is automatically already the largest country in the world, as USA plus Canada equals massive country. Especially once you go and include Greenland. Yep, Alaska is still a part of the USA. And yeah, just all of Canada goes. So the USA is now the largest country, still the strongest, still the richest. The USA is honestly just too good, and if this were a video game, the USA would have gotten a nerf a long time ago. But to be fair, so would have China and India, a population nerf, Russia a land. Sadly for us, this isn't a video game, and Mexico gets annexed by the US, where at that point they officially get, an official language. If you didn't know, English is actually not their official language. They don't have one. It's just the most commonly spoken. But at this point, they have two, as over 150 million of their speakers speak fluent Spanish. So they they get two official languages, English and Spanish, one for the South, one for the North. With that, the USA also begins to push into Central America, only adding to their Spanish speakers, except for Belize, who actually speaks English. They were a British colony, but happens. With that, they annex pretty much all of North America, including just about every country there. And although the blue team didn't technically completely lose and just surrendered, it was a surrender on the blue team's part, which means the USA got a lot more land than they occupied. Basically what that means is that the USA won the war, so they get to take extra land. And they do this in the form of Northern Colombia and Venezuela. With that, the US is now by far the largest and by far the strongest country. Population-wise, there are quite a few million, I'd say. At least an extra, 150 to 200 million more people that they got from this. Yeah. Economy-wise, they didn't gain too much, but they're definitely still number one. And with that, I'm pretty sure that's about it. So we did have the USA winning the scenario, but you could have given it to the blue team. It just wasn't as likely, if you ask me. The USA could easily take out Canada and then begin to push down into Mexico and Central America, who, they're just a lot poorer. They don't have as much equipment. And if the US really was starting to lose, they have something called nuclear bombs that would destroy their reputation as a whole. But they do have an option. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you all next time. Bye.